Visit Canton and experience Hall of Famers' hometown favorites for yourself. Plan your trip to America's playing field.
In all your time visiting the city of Canton, what is one of your favorite things about this place?
Well, I haven't did anything outside of being here for this, so I haven't really explored the city yet, but as I keep coming up here, I find something to do because I got to get out of this hotel at some point.
All right. Franco Harris has a candy store he would recommend, and Fred Biletnikoff has a tavern he would like to tell you about. And Marcus Allen has...
Does the tavern stay open past 1, 2 o'clock? My hours. I'm a late night person. I hang out.
And Marcus Allen has a golf course for you.
It's early morning things. I'm a night person.
Is there something about Canton that stands out? Your favorite part of being here outside of enshrinement?
Well, I'm very familiar with Canton because it's 50 miles, a little bit south of my hometown. And as a scholastic athlete many, many years ago, competed against the Canton Public School System's athletic teams. But coming back to this city and coming back for these very special events that are a part of the Hall of Fame weekend celebration always means a little bit more to me.
Well, I would say the parade. Well, the year I went in, and Don Shula introduced me, that would be something I'll never forget. And in the parade, he was sitting next to me. That's when I got kind of teary-eyed. Everybody called you Larry, Larry. And that was my favorite moment, other than going in and making my speech that day.
I would say, quite frankly, that having grown up here in Ohio and reading and hearing about, as a junior high and high school football player, about the fact that pro football started here. And, Canton was right next door, and it was not the celebrated thing back then. I'm talking about the late 50s, early 60s. And then to hear that they were going to actually build a facility here, and there was going to be an actual game played here every year and so on, was very exciting, and that's why we came down. To answer your question directly, the people of Canton, the historical significance, generation to generation, has grabbed here, has taken hold here. And people grow up here knowing that the hall's here and appreciating it every once a year. And they totally, seemingly just look forward to it. It's sort of like New Orleans with the big celebrations that go on there. It's become Canton's middle name. Mm-hmm. And what a great thing for a small town in Ohio that has now a nearly 100-year plus history of that happening. It's a thing they take pride in here, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And we as players get to come back and see them, and it's kind of fun.
Well, Larry, I would follow that up with the development. You were here when we broke ground and we were building the facility, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and now the development around the Hall of Fame Village, and can you just speak to that and the growth?
Well, the growth is just that's like the Miami Dolphins training facility. We used to go down and train in the old baseball stadium when Larry and I were first with the Dolphins. We practiced in the baseball stadium.
Where I played high school football games.
That was our facility. Now they have this sprawling, my gosh, just a $1 outfit. And Canton hasn't changed as much in that direction. The facilities certainly here at the Hall have. But the rest of Canton's pretty much like the way I remember it, different parts of it certainly. It's been growing and expanding, of course, but at the same time, parts of it have stayed the same. And I commented to Audrey, my wife, on the way over here from the farm, I have a farm east of here, that driving through the country looks the same as it did 50 years ago when I used to come here, 60 years ago. And but the enthusiasm of the people is still the same.
Kurt, all your years of coming to Canton, before the Yellow Jacket and after, what's one of your favorite things to do in Canton or places to go?
I tell you what I love. I just love going to the museum every year. Even though you're in it and you've been a part of it and you've seen it and heard it, there is just something so special and unique about going back to the museum and just seeing the history of the game.
The Hall of Fame store. You asked me what was the reason for it is because, number one, I never ever thought I'd be here. Number two, I live in a real small town and have a lot of brothers and family members, and they celebrate the Hall of Fame as much as I do. So I want to make sure that I take care of everybody.
So I might have said this to Joe. You know, if the law's ever chasing me, I'm coming here because they make sure that I was protected. Like they're like, you know, we don't know what's going on, but you're at this guy's safe, and you got to explain yourself. You know,
You're
so
one
I
of the
always,
family.
Yeah, so I always felt so in that way. I don't know if there's any place special other than just how they make you feel. There's a history. There's a connection that gets made with the Hall of Fame that is ingrained in the culture here, and it's personal and local. It's not, the NFL is such a big brand and a huge thing. It's a machine in many ways, and the teams are huge enterprises with all these. This is really a local, in the ground, in the dirt kind of thing, and I think it surprises new Hall of Famers when they come in like, oh, this is. I thought it would be the NFL, and they would do it. No, this is really just people of Canton and how they feel about football. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people who love football, but they don't have the history or the. And I think, Joe, you represent that in so much of the way that it's like it's in your blood more than people say, oh, I love football. You don't love football like people in Canton love football. It's different.
One of the great photos, one of the great pro football photos, is a photo of Steve, his brother, his mother, and his father posing on the front steps of the Pro Football Hall of Fame when you were, 7?
Maybe, not even. We were traveling back from Utah to New York. We lived in Greenwich, Connecticut, and we were driving through. And think about it, you're on I-80, and you're traveling across the country. And my dad says, no, we got to go down to Canton. And so we, as a 7-year-old, we took the picture down here and went through the hall.
And when he was elected to the Hall of Fame, we reposed the photo.
Oh, yeah, we did. With my brother and everything. That's great, Joe.
So your parents saved that photo the whole time?
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, they still have the piece of white bread they didn't eat in 1972, so, you know.
Gentlemen, we really, really appreciate the time. Will you just quickly tell us, all your years coming to Canton, Art, what's one of your favorite things about this town outside of the enshrinement?
Outside of the enshrinement, it's a warm, welcoming town. People are very friendly. They reach out to you. What can we do to help you? You know, that type. And it's good, fun people. And as I said, Mary Motley represented Canton very well when I met him because he was a very outgoing guy, one of the nicest persons I ever met in my life. Mary Motley, a representative of Canton.
How classy. Fred Biletnikoff told us it was a tavern.
Typical.
Willie, how about you? What's one of your favorite spots or things about Canton?
Well, it's interesting because I talked to Leonard Dawson Jr. this morning. His father and his family is from Alliance, Ohio. And we had spent some time over in Alliance with his family, and that history is tied to Canton, Ohio. So because of race in America and different places where Art might have grown up, I grew up in the South. Len Dawson in high school in 1959 had a black center in Alliance, Ohio. Wow. Hello, Art. See? No, so the essence of all of these different things are fascinating because I reacted the same way. In 1959, but he was in Alliance, Ohio. That allowed for that to happen decades before other places.
Got it. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
As a part of the Black College Football Hall of Fame having its permanent home here in Canton, we started an annual classic Labor Day weekend. We've had our third. We were interrupted briefly there with COVID like everybody was, but each year it grows more and more in this community, which has become a really important element of our community already in just 3 short years. But it also, and Shaq brought something up, and I want to go back to it real quick, Shaq, because you and I talk about it a lot. Having the Black College Football Hall of Fame here, having the classic here, is not just about the Hall of Fame, it's not just about the classic. It is a marketing tool for HBCUs. is, believe it or not, there's only one HBCU in the region around here in Canton, Ohio, and that's down at Central. But that's one of the things we always said about this whole experience. This is about marketing and giving students a thought process of considering HBCUs. There's an education component to everything we do here at the Hall of Fame, and that's one of them, is to make sure that that message is still delivered. But every year, the classic Doug Shack has been growing in popularity. You've seen it. We honor the Black College Football Hall of Fame recent inductees. The classic experience is kind of like the Legacy Bowl. It's not just a game. In fact, the game is just the excuse to have a gathering. A classic is something you have to see to believe. I mean, the marching bands, all the festivities that go around it, and the way that the community gets involved, and the way that alumni come to Canton, it's second to none.
We need one more thing from both of you. Can you give us, in all your time in coming to Canton, something really fun that you get to do in this city?
I get to go to Bedner's Tavern every night.
All right.
That's my favorite spot.
Franco, is there something that you really enjoy doing in the city of Canton?
I enjoy that candy shop.
Oh, yeah. Haggis.
Haggis, yep, I enjoy Haggis. Then the Italian restaurant place, golly, Franco. La Pizzeria.
The pizzeria, yeah.
Yep, so I guess my whole thing is around food. What can I say?
Well, Joe, it was so great hearing from all of our guests. Really, an incredible matchup, an incredible game, and really, like you mentioned, it was the start of something really special for the 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers.
No question. And it was also, we don't want to lose sight. The Pittsburgh Steelers began a dynasty, a football dynasty, but they also had a tremendous impact on a community that was devastated by what we now call the Rust Belt. It really gave the city of Pittsburgh a new identity and lifted the entire population's spirit for a decade to come. Visit Canton and experience Hall of Famers' hometown favorites for yourself. Plan your trip to America's playing field.
All right, before we wrap, we do want to ask you, all these years of helping with the induction at the Hall of Fame, you've obviously spent a ton of time in Canton. What's a great place to visit in Canton?
I sometimes just like to look at Jim Thorpe statue when I walk in. I mean, I haven't seen a bust yet. I haven't seen anything. And Joe will tell you the story of where it used to be. And when we did our tour of the hall in 1981, they opened my whole tour of it. It was a different place then other than the Hall of Fame. I high-fived Jim Thorpe on the way up, the way in. I will say this, Aditi, and it's early in the morning. It's in the morning. But the parade that they have, and I've been in it a few times, and often I'm preparing for what I got to do. So if I went to the parade, it would be it'd be counterproductive for what we have to do. Especially last year, we were during the day. But I rode in it a few times. Once and my kids, they were younger then, rode with me. But I rode with Ralph Wilson when he went into the Hall of Fame, and Joe remembers this clearly, and for whatever reason, he had asked me to induct him, which I will take to my grave. I told him that at the time. I will take this to my grave that you asked. But I rode with Mr. Wilson, and who was he 90 when he was?
I think he was 91 when he was inducted, yeah.
He was still sharp, Aditi, John, and just his comments. I mean, he rode, and I was kind of in the back seat, and he turned back and made comments. He goes, "Look at those folks that came out of, it wasn't so much a senior center, but as assisted living, and they were in their wheelchairs with breathing devices." He goes, "Look, they're fine. They came out to see this parade, and look at that." And he then referenced it in his speech, by the way. So that would be the correct answer. The parade, because it's a parade, it's America. The chairs go out there the night before, but it's 6-year-olds waving a pennant, and they're 90-year-olds on breathing devices. And if you can't tear up a little thinking about how pure that is and how the parades must have been in the 60s. I mean, I don't know the first year you had a parade, Joe, 70s, 60s, I don't know. I mean, if you can't enjoy that for what it is, it's as pure as it comes, and these are the greatest players of all time, and that's pretty cool.
Visit Canton and experience Hall of Famers' hometown favorites for yourself. Plan your trip to America's playing field.
And I know you spent some time in Canton, Peter, over the years. And so is there one place or one thing that you enjoy doing when you're here in Canton, Ohio?
My favorite thing that I've ever done in Canton is spend 2 days in your world, John. And your world, Joe. 2 days in the archives. And remember the year I got the award for the Sports Writer Award. That was one of the coolest things ever. My family, my 2 daughters, my wife, my brother-in-law, we went all the way through it. And they got to, my brother-in-law got to hold Dick Butkus's helmet. And so many very, very cool historic things. And I thought one of the greatest things that happened was when Ralph Wilson basically donated enough money to make this an actually a tremendous research laboratory. So if you ask me, I don't know if the common person can get in there and to do what I did, but man, those are some of the most fun times I have ever had in this job.
Visit Canton and experience Hall of Famers' hometown favorites for yourself. Plan your trip to America's playing field. In the interest of full transparency, you are a Canton native and grew up here. So you have memories of the Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, starting with the breaking, the groundbreaking in 1963. Tell us a little bit about how you remember the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton.
Joe, I think that groundbreaking was in 1962.
It actually was. Yes, it was. The grand opening was 63.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. I know some people have heard it before, but I was 13 years old in 1962, and I was standing there with my father. And we watched the groundbreaking. And Joe, I wasn't the only Hall of Famer there, was I?
No, you weren't. Alan Page was there. Alan Page actually worked with the construction crew that helped build the building.
And also, I believe Larry Zonka was there.
That's correct. That's correct. He came down from Stowe.
Yeah. And so I only lived a mile from the hall. And I used to ride my bike down there while it was being constructed. The rotunda, the football, when that was being built, I'd never seen a roof line quite like that. And it took me a while to try to figure out what the heck that was.
We still haven't.
I used to walk through it while it was under construction. I went to every enshrinement, every Hall of Fame game until I started playing in the NFL. And so, yes, I probably have a different place in my heart for the Hall of Fame than most everyone else who's been enshrined there. It was growing up in Canton, Ohio, you realize that the Hall of Fame is just woven into the DNA of every Canton resident for the last 75 years.
James, you've been to Canton a lot of times.
Yeah.
And obviously, we tell all of our Hall of Famers this is your second home. Do you have any story about visiting Canton or being in Canton you'd like to share?
Well, I think one of the great things for me is I grew up in a single parent family, and my dad was the single parent. And I was the youngest of 4 kids, so all the other kids are out of the house. And I'm about 9 or 10 years old, and we're sitting there watching a game on our big black and white television. And my dad says, we're watching the Browns. And he says, they're talking about Jim Brown. And he goes, well, you know, he's no Marion Motley. Now, a 9-year-old has never heard of Marion Motley. Didn't know Marion Motley's name from anybody. But when I finally went to Canton, I got to see who Marion Motley was. Number 76 for the Cleveland Browns. A great running back. And somebody that Joe knows that when we did our radio program, and I asked Jim Brown about him, Jim Brown reverted to like a 15-year-old kid, talking about how he adored Marion Motley and how much it meant for him to go to the Cleveland Browns because of players like Marion Motley. So when you go to Canton, you have that history, and it just seeps into you. And so I was standing there in front of Marion Motley's bust and looking at his uniform going, this is what my dad was talking about. And it was just so special for me.
Visit Canton and experience Hall of Famers' hometown favorites for yourself. Plan your trip to America's playing field.
Well, Frank, one of our sponsors is Visit Canton, and you were just here yesterday, actually, here in Canton, Ohio. You've spent a lot of time here helping produce Hall of Fame enshrinements. What's one thing in Canton that is kind of a must for you when you come here? Besides coming to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is there some place that you like to visit or a treat that you like to get when you're here in Canton?
That's ever evolving, and because Canton is ever evolving, and I was in Canton this week and went by Centennial Park and was just mesmerized by this incredible monument to football that is so spectacular that anybody who visits Canton. A lot of people don't realize that the Pro Football Hall of Fame isn't in downtown Canton, right? It's just outside of Canton. The city itself, though, is a monument to the game, and Centennial Plaza, I think, is probably the most spectacular manifestation of that. I just love the public art that's just been popping up around the city, all of which, of course, is football oriented, or much of which is, and that's no accident. There's such an incredible amount of pride in the city in terms of being the birthplace of professional football. It's just expressed everywhere. So if you haven't been to Canton, you ought to go. You ought to see the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And make sure that you spend a little bit of time in downtown, too, because there's some amazing places to visit.
Visit Canton and experience Hall of Famers' hometown favorites for yourself. Plan your trip to America's playing field.